Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another Last of Us review discussion podcast. I'm your host, Richard Billy Jr., and tonight I'm joined by Mr. Adam Vale. How's it going, Adam?
It's going, people. It's going. Let's do this. Last of Us. Not last of
Yes,
me. It's last of us. Oh boy.
yes, absolutely. And we're also joined by Mr. Carlos Romero. How's it going, Carlos?
Yo, what's going on, everyone? Man, can you believe it? 2 episodes in a span of 5 days. Gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I can't wait for the next episode because yeah, it'll be before Super Bowl. We'll see that on
Mm-hmm,
Friday, so I'll see it. I look forward to seeing how that turns out.
mm-hmm.
But we are
And
here
it, and,
today to. Well, go ahead.
uh, and it involves, as you know, we'll talk more in deep in this, but it involves, certain characters from the game that have pretty interesting storylines. So I can't
Bad
wait.
Bunny. Bad Bunny.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Well, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. Interesting storylines for sure. Yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So on that note, we'll get to that. But tonight we're going to be discussing The Last of Us season 1, episode 4. I believe the episode is titled "Please Hold to My Hand." Now, I don't know about that title. It's a little, maybe that should be a "Hold My Hand" or something else. But it's just my thoughts. But let's just get into the initial thoughts we had with this episode. I'm going to go to you first, Carlos, to try to switch it up this week. So, what did you think of this episode?
So normally whenever I talk about, you know, initial thoughts of these episodes, I always mention the Twitter reaction of the episode. And I felt like this episode, unlike last one, didn't get as much hype, which I found it interesting. I thought, well, is it bad? Is it good? I wonder. I couldn't really gauge the consensus of most people. So I went in with sort of no expectations really. We obviously know, for those that played the game, we knew what was kind of going to happen. There were some deviations, but man, I love this episode. It's this episode wasn't like top tier of TV shows ever, but I just like I really enjoyed this episode. We'll talk more in depth of it, but in particular, Joel and Ellie, their dynamic, their dialogue, their scenes, th- that made the show, that made that episode for me. I felt like that was some of the best stuff
Yeah,
that we've seen in the whole show.
most of it was like word for word from the game. The interactions with the pun book and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna mention, like, were some of the jokes in the game, because
Yes,
I
yeah,
swore I
yeah.
could remember
The
some of them.
jokes, yeah, they were in the game. A few of those were in the game. Even when they were late, when they would keep about the campfire, the whole thing about diarrhea is genetic, runs in the genes, and the pun
Yeah.
book, because that pun book that she's showing off right when he was pumping out the gas, that is something that she picks up in the DLC. She was given
Mhm.
that by, was it Riley, during that time. So that was a connection there to that. And I'm
Yeah.
sure they'll do a flashback and go into more detail on that.
Yeah. Overall, Rich, this I felt like this was probably one of the strongest episodes. It might even be the best episode of the season so far for me. I just really, as someone that's familiar with the story, I really appreciate these moments and these dynamics between the two main characters, and and just to see all of that relationship build up in the way that they did it, I felt like it was really well done.
Sounds good. Good takeaways, Carlos. How about you, Adam? What were your initial impressions from this episode?
It was good. What threw me off a little bit is just the tweaks that they made. Not so much of introducing new character, which we'll get into, but just how certain events happened. It's like, oh well, I remember this taking place in the hotel in the game, and then they scrapped the whole hotel part. And I was like, well, we sort of threw some of that hotel stuff in episode 2, but we're gonna mix things up, which is cool because when I saw that, I was like, well, I guess this is what I can expect going forward in future episodes, where they're just going to like remold some of the game itself, certain elements of the game to streamline it into another direction and to make something new. Like when you're playing with Play-Doh, it's like, oh, you could make this, but we're gonna make some a little something different, but it's still the same. And here it is. It was a good twist. So there was a lot going on. I felt like this was more of a build-up, Carlos said, we're seeing the building of that relationship between Joe and Ellie. It seems like he's warming up to her now and getting used to having her around more. And it's what they've been traveling for a few weeks, so it's just naturally it's going to happen. Yeah, he threw that line about her being cargo, but we know that's just him with his wall still up. It's hard. He sees her as it's similar to like his daughter, and it's definitely it's a child, and he goes into it, and we'll talk about that, how he felt when she used the weapon. But yeah, overall, I felt that this was all building up to another big battle. So if anything, this was more of like a two-parter. So far we've seen one-offs of all these episodes, but this was definitely like to be continued, and it's only fitting in a way that we get this only in a few days as opposed to having to wait till the end of the week, because then it's like, oh, there you go, here's the second part of it. But I'm sure that'll probably be the first half hour, and then the next half hour will be, because remember they have to finish the whole game within 9 episodes. They've already said it. That's done. They got it done. 9 episodes is all we're getting.
So we got 5 after this, right?
Yeah.
So oh, by the way, I do want to mention, Adam, you talked about they've been on the road for weeks. That's a change from the game. That they never went to Kansas City, if I remember correctly.
They were Pittsburgh. They were going to Pittsburgh, and that was the whole thing. They were looking at the bridge, and that was the goal. This is another deviation that the show was pulling off, and I think they said it was more of just logistics where they were filming. They're filming in Canada. And so they had to work with their surroundings and how things look. I was like, oh, well, this sort of looks like this area. All right, that's where we say we're going. That's it. And so they did that. But a lot of what took place is similar to what happened when they were in Pittsburgh. They're going into town with this, remember, the tunnel being blocked, but then going into the town, then getting it into the city and being attacked and the whole thing. That almost looked like frame by frame, comparison to how the cinematics were done in the game.
The shootout when he's behind the truck, that literally looks like it's part of the game.
Yeah.
I'm getting nostalgic here.
Yeah. All right. Yes. Good takeaways from you both. My initial impressions is that I thought this was a really good episode. I do have 2 critiques on the episode. However, yes, that we have to be a little bit shocking with some of my critiques. So here's the thing. We'll get into the deviations in the next segment, but I'm just going to say, I love the dynamic between Ellie and Joel. That for me was the strongest part of the episode. They're back and forth, the jokes, just like y'all said. Some of that stuff is taken word from word from the game, and we're building up that relationship. I love that. That to me was the best thing about this episode. And then, of course, there were a lot of scenes that we saw taken directly from the game, which made you feel as though you were a part of that game experience once again. The only 2 complaints I have, however, we have the shootout scene that Carlos mentioned, which I thought was great. The question I have, though, is, this is an HBO show, right? You had this scene where he tells Ellie to go hide in the back while he kills this guy. I'm thinking to myself, listen, man, we know The Last of Us is a violent game, right? The way you kill the guys. Why couldn't they just show him killing the guy?
Oh, I disagree, Rich.
Yeah,
I wholeheartedly disagree.
Yeah, me too. It was more impactful to hear that guy call for his mom and get all emotional. And that's a big part of the game. That was a big selling point for the game. That when you kill, remember the humans, you're choking them, you would hear, it was like, no, man, please, we can work it out. It's like, no. And to see that get played out here, or I should say hear it, that was more impactful than just seeing them put a bullet in him.
Well, and also not only to mention that, but also we get to see Ellie. Ellie, she's kind of like in shock a little bit, and you see tears running through her eyes, and and I felt like it was more impactful to see that than to see Joel kill the guy. I do agree, Rich. If if the purpose of that was to deviate from seeing sort of the
Mhm.
violence of it, then I would tend to agree. But as far as just how the scene played out and the effects that it was supposed to convey, I felt like it did it pretty well. Um, yeah, I really liked. I love the way that she told Ellie to go go back into the wall and wait there, and then she's realizing what he's gonna do, seeing
Mhm.
her tears in her eyes, and then seeing Joel coming back, and then her just sort of snapping out of it and pretending like it's not affecting her, so she can like be like tough. Like that
Yeah,
was great, man. I really like that part.
Mhm. And Rich, you
I
play the game. You already know that that killing and stuff that's going to happen later on. There's going to
yes.
be full out shootouts,
So
and they're not going to hide it. But I think they felt maybe in these particular, it wasn't just that one. It was also with the doctor scene when she
yes.
went to kill the same thing. They didn't show it. You see the gun and you hear the pop, but they didn't go too
So
far into it. So.
so this is what my comment is. I think you both make excellent points. I agree. Only thing I would say that I would love to see is, again, if this is a slow build to show where you're going to see later, because again, as you said, as we get deeper into this storyline, Joel does get more violent. So I
Mhm.
would hope that we're going to see him do something shocking as far as kill somebody, because then you had that discussion she had with him about, did you ever kill any innocent people? And of
Right.
course, he didn't really want to talk about that, but obviously he did
Well,
want,
remember,
just
he
try to
he
confess that.
he sort of said his answer when she said, "How did you know it was an ambush?" And he said he's been on both
Yeah.
sides of it.
Yes.
So that
Hmm.
that says it right there. Like he's done some horrible things in the past, and he
So
wasn't proud about it. But I guess you do what you have to do to survive.
absolutely. And that's why I do hope that we are going to see some of these horrible things that was alluded to. So I look
Mhm.
forward to that. And the last thing I will mention before we get to the deviations, because this is actually a part of the deviations,
Hmm.
we're introduced to another character that we have never met by the name of Kathleen.
Oh yeah.
I just want to
Mhm.
say, I don't find that as a that her as a convincing villain, as somebody who is in charge of all these people. So I need to see what happens in episode 2 to make me feel that, because when I was looking at her, I thought to myself, this feels like Pamela Milton Walking Dead. As somebody who was, you ordering people around, but we don't really see the brutal side of this character, at least not yet. So hopefully we're going to see that in the next episode.
I recognize the actress. She was in Yellow Jackets, that other
She
show that
was
we was
in
talking about. Yeah, she's one of the survivors in that one.
Well,
that probably was one of her better shows. She was also in another famous show called Two and a Half Men. That's what I
Oh,
remember her from.
yes, I've heard of
Yeah,
that show. I've heard of that.
yeah, as like the love interest, the comedy love interest for
Uh-huh.
Charlie Sheen. So she's, yeah. So this is a totally different role for her,
Oh
for
yeah.
sure.
yeah.
So do
She,
you?
oh, good.
No, I was just because you said about the Pamela Milton linking with The Walking Dead, but I don't think she's
Yeah.
going to stick around that long. I think this
Oh
is
yeah.
it.
No.
I think next episode she'll be done because, like you mentioned, she's not in the game. This is just something they threw together just to put a different spin on it. They give a leader and some texture to it. Because remember, it was just like a bunch of hunters that had
Yeah.
overthrown one of the DZs. So I guess that there's a reason that they wanted to put like a face to this group, and that's what we have.
I will say this. I don't know. I don't know how the show eventually is going to try to portray her, because I don't know. The way that they introduced her, they didn't introduce her as sort of a villain, more of a uh, I don't know, like a revolutionary type of person, because the you know it was supposed to be controlled by Fedra,
Yeah,
that whole zone, and she was talking to that doctor about things that um, they did to them.
they killed her brother or something. They tortured her brother, and
Well,
she thinks that he knows about it,
she
and
keeps
that's
mentioning Henry. Is that
yeah,
her brother,
And
or is
that's,
that
that's
and you see,
the
no, go
kids.
ahead. I
Oh,
I think I think I have I think I have a idea of where that's going. But continue. Go ahead,
I'm
Adam.
I'm thinking that if I remember it, that's the two kids that left. It was like he's an older teenager and his younger brother.
Yeah,
and I think
Henry
she's
and Sam.
yeah. So I think she thinks that something is going on with him, and that he's to blame for the. It's weird. I don't know.
The two that showed up at the end, right? At the cliffhanger
Yeah,
scene?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
I don't,
okay.
and that they left the group, but she blames him for what happened to her brother.
Okay.
And I think she thinks that the doctor is helping Henry to hide and do that whole thing. And he's like, "Oh, I helped give birth to you, like that. I'm always been in your life." Whole thing. It's very weird,
So,
but you.
oh no, so no, I just was going to say that's a very good point. I actually thought when they talked about the doctor and the doctor was talking to her that they were going to allude to the fact that she has some type of mental illness, and we'll find out what that is in the next episode. Because when she's talking about this other person, it kind of like she feels as though, at least from my perspective, her brother is still alive. And I thought they were going to do this whole thing where they reveal that the brother also is infected now, like we see in The Walking Dead when
Oh,
the
he's
person
just in
has
a
a hard
room
time
somewhere. Yeah,
accepting.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought they were doing. But again, obviously, they had that scene where she walked in, and you see that. I guess you see the creatures or the huge. I guess it's
It's
going to
like
be. I don't know
it's
if
coming
it's.
from the ground. It's like this sinkhole that's opening up. It's like
Yeah.
they're tunneling their way through, which is something else that's new to the show. So, are they trying to say that because we heard well when the cars are rumbling, you see like the weeds and stuff twitching on the ground. So clearly that they know the creatures know where they are. But then when the soldier, her second in command, says take a look and to what you were pointing out that sinkhole swelling. It was like moving and like at the live. He's like, they're coming. He's like, we'll deal with that later. We have to deal with this Henry and all this stuff now. And I was like, well, are they tunneling? Is that what they're trying to say? That they can dig holes and just work? That sounds ridiculous if that's the case. That's what they're doing. But unless it's a weird creature, and that's what we're going to see
Oh
different
yeah.
variants.
My understanding is, or my the way that I saw it is that they think it's an infected type of variant that's doing causing all of this. So since it still hasn't shown up or manifested itself, they're like, okay, we have this in mind, but we have to deal with Henry, or because I'm not too sure if they distinguished Henry from Joel and Ellie, right? Like they said that
No,
two
they don't know.
outsiders.
No, they don't know. No, because that was the thing. The second in command, the dude with the beard, right, shows up and he says, "Hey, no one made it. This and this and that. This guy's
Oh,
dead." That
you know,
wasn't. I thought that was the mom. I don't think she's the mom though. When he was screaming for mom, I don't think it's her because she didn't really
oh no
react. But
no. Oh, what?
mm,
So two things. Two things. The dude that died, his dad was right next to him on that scene. His dad was like holding him or something. Uh, Number two, by the way, fun thing: the second in command, is being played by
oh yeah, yeah, that's Tommy, the voice of
Tommy.
Tommy.
Yep,
Yeah, the
voice of
voice of
Tommy.
Tommy from the
Ah.
game. Yeah.
It was pretty
So
cool.
they found a role for him. There you go. So that is cool.
And
Yeah.
they don't look like the way that they've been portrayed. They haven't looked like villains. Similar to how the game, when you get to that part of the game, they're just like, all right, yeah, these dudes are just gonna come
Yeah.
after you. Like we're not gonna give you enough story about them. And in this one,
Uh-huh.
it seems like they're sort of giving us a story.
Because it's weird. It's like they are a resistance group to Fedra. They were in that DZ. They fought back, and now they took control. But they don't really have full control, and there's something going on with Henry and Sam. And then even when the second in command says, "Oh yeah, well we found a truck with a bunch of supplies," she instantly points that, "Oh no, this is Henry. This is Henry's people. This is what Henry's doing. And we have to find him. Don't you see? He's behind all of this." It's like, well, from what we know, unless they change it, Henry is just a teenager. He's not this big mastermind dude. And I don't know if everybody else buys into it. I would think that it's pretty obvious from the sleeping bags and all the supplies that these people are from the outside. They're not from this community. And clearly their car was hit by these people, their group, and they fought back. That seems pretty obvious. But I don't know. She keeps pushing, like she's trying to convince the group to hunt down Henry and Sam, like they're the villains. It seems like point to everything. Oh, it's raining today. It's Henry's fault. It's like, oh, we got monsters going. It's Henry. He let them in here. What threw me off, just real quick to go back when he found second in command found that room and said, "What do you want to do about this?" And she's like, "Ignore it." I'm like, "Go get some gasoline and light that room on fire. That's it. Just burn it all. What do you mean?" And then close the door. That seems like that would be my first response if I saw something like that. Whatever.
Yeah,
I agree.
the things with that I think might have been the most polarizing stuff from the people from some stuff that I've seen. But I quite enjoyed it. I do agree with Rich. Hopefully that there's sort of a payback. Like it pays off in this next episode, because I don't really think we're not going to be here for too long. I feel like this next episode is going to be the last we see of Kansas City. Which, quite frankly, that's all anyone who really can handle Kansas City.
There you go. There you go.
Uh-oh.
But not only that, it wasn't in the game. It wasn't even that long. They weren't in that area too long. So,
by the way, I do want to mention. Oh, go ahead, Rich.
Oh no, I'm gonna go after you.
I do want to mention. I like the way that they did the scene where they're stuck on. There's that blockade when they're on the highway, and Joel like peeks on that like in between the semi crate or whatever that was, and you can see that there's like the highway that stretches out, to on, and then but
he can't get through.
He can't get through. So similar to the game, they did something similar to that too, where they have to get to the city to do this. And I feel like they did a really good job of executing that whole part.
And it just makes sense, because I always felt when I remember playing that part, I was like, oh, once that happened, because it was from a cutscene, I was like, this is intentional. It only makes sense. This is going to be bad, because it's like, well, what's the alternative? Well, we got to go into the city. Oh, there's going to be plenty of people there, or creatures there. It's just, there's too many open areas. This is going to be a nightmare. This is it. I knew something bad was. So I always felt that was intentional, that whoever was setting all those traps purposely clogged up that tunnel there. Because, like you said, even in the game, he looked over and he could see it's clear. But it's like, how does he get around? I mean, you have to go the long way and then go through the city and then find another, on-ramp. Was a trap.
Yeah.
The whole thing was so he probably knew. Who knows? Maybe he knew it was a trap, and he was gonna. It's like, well, we got no other choice. Got to do it.
Exactly. Well, the one quick thing I will mention, and then we can talk a little bit more about the deviations, is I'm not going to say any spoilers. Obviously, this is a spoiler discussion, but to go to something that Carlos mentioned earlier, where he said, "Oh yes, there are going to be some other very interesting characters, and we get a chance to meet some of these characters that have an interesting story." I'm going to make a prediction and say I don't think that that story will last for long either, going based upon the formula for these shows, because going by episode 3, we got a glimpse of another character's story. That story came to an end. So I'm saying I would not be surprised by the end of episode 5. We may see some of the same outcomes. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I don't think and like Adam mentioned, like Adam mentioned earlier, this is only going to be 9 episodes long, and this is the 5th episode. So I think 3 episodes for this little saga would feel too long for this type of the way that the show has already portrayed itself to be. They kind of just go through all the motions pretty quick. So yeah, I expect this to go to conclude itself next episode. By the way, I do want to mention, I don't know if we want to get into the whole the previews, but we did see a variant. And I'm like, we're gonna do this. This looks interesting.
We saw a variant, and we saw Joel said, "Run."
There you go. I mean, we could put 2 and 2 and 3 together, because then you add that with the sinkhole and something pushing up. It's like, well, it's going to be this big monster thing coming out. and it's gonna wreak havoc on everyone there. And
I do want to mention something that was pretty cool. In the beginning of the episode, they were camping, in the middle of the woods, and Joel was sort of like, I don't think he slept through that whole thing. Like he had to take the coffee and stuff, and he was wide awake the whole time, and he was just standing there. Um,
she freaked him out. That's what happened. Because first you pointed out, if I remember, it was before then or after about his hearing, and he talked about he had a bum ear. It was one of his ears, and so he can't hear that well on it. And then he's ready to go to sleep. Remember, in fact, he was somewhat asleep when she kept trying to talk to him, and that's when she gave the jokes, the pun about the diarrhea and the whole thing. But then she said, "Hey, are we safe here? No one can find us." And he's like, "Yes." And then she rolled over ready to go to sleep. She was, rest assured. Okay, he told me, that's it. I'm going to sleep. But then in his mind, he's like, well, maybe we're not, because he hasn't been in that area in a while. And then, like you said, he wakes up. Next scene we see he's just on watch, drinking coffee. It ruined it for him because now he was concerned.
Yeah, well, I also feel like a lot of it was trust. Like I feel like he didn't trust Ellie as much on that first scene. And then, throughout the episode they've made a point of him, him and her having a deepened relationship. They've gone through trauma with the killing of that dude. So on the second time, I felt like it kind of mirrored itself a little bit, that camp scene, and when they're in the apartment complex. In the first one, he couldn't go to sleep, and in the second one, they sort of ended with him just, like they're. I feel like they were like just, they knew each other now, and then he trusted her enough to go to sleep this time, but then it ended up being.
Oh, that, and she saved his life. That's something we can't even look past, because she could have just ran off or whatever, and she didn't. He didn't know she had a weapon. That she
Yeah.
had the gun, and by her doing that, taking the shot, helping him out, I'm sure that gave her some brownie points in his book. It's like, all right, well, I've been seeing her as just cargo and the whole thing, but she's more than that, and she's looked out for me. I probably could have died at that moment, but she could have ran off, but she didn't. And I think that even if she didn't have that gun, I think she would have attacked him, jumped on the guy's back or something just to get him off. I think she would have jumped in, and that's a big part of it. So I'm sure that helped ease that connection. And it's like, oh, you know what? Let me pull down my wall a little bit.
And I guess that glass didn't help at all.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It goes back to his hearing. I think he laid on his the one good ear. He wound up sleeping on the good ear, so he couldn't hear it. But then she didn't hear it either, because she was like, "Wake up!" And then you see the gun and the whole thing. So maybe her hearing isn't so great either. So
That's possible. That's possible. So we've already started to really talk about the deviations. Is there any other deviations that y'all wanted to mention, and what you thought about some of those deviations, if those were good decisions?
I'm trying to think. There was one that I was going to mention, then I completely forgot. I mean, they're using that apartment complex was interesting, because I felt like it was a pretty funny thing to use, like when he's like going up the stairs, like, oh, we'll just get up until we can essentially just get tired, and he's like, they go up the stairs and he's all beat, and he's like, I'm 56 years old. What do you expect?
I'm an old man. And what's funny, that I was like, wait, this seems like oh wait, that's right, they flipped it, because it was reverse when it came to finding Sam and Henry. That's how they found them. It was Joel and Ellie when they were crawling through those apartments, and then they found them in a room. They had a whole place set up for themselves. It was like their own little hideout. And then they explained that they were trying to get out.
Did we see those pictures in the game, like those drawings in the show that they showed the drawings?
Yes, there was drawings that she finds in the game. And she's like, oh, well, listen, whatever. One of them has face paint on and stuff. And then that's when you see the kid, Sam, and he had face paint. So, yeah, that was in there. That was just giving a little heads up. And the game did a lot of that. Some of it for the majority of the time was in the notes. And I was like, oh, if you took time to find the notes on the side and you read them, then when you came across, even if it was a dead body or a creature or something wearing a certain outfit, then you put two and two together. Oh, I know what's going on here. And that was this type of thing. If you missed this part, then you didn't get it. But it's cool. They really paid attention to detail. They really stuck to the source material, which I feel is rare. Right? We hear about it all the time. I think the only other show from a transition from a game to television or film or movies, Witcher comes to mind, because The Witcher did a good job of carrying all that lore and bringing it over, and with the story and the enemies and the creatures, and then trying to stick to it. Yeah, you're adding your own little stuff here and there, but still sticking to what brought you to the dance. Why do people tune in? Because they like this IP and they want to see more of it. And I'm glad that The Last of Us is really sticking to it. I mean, this is just like, man, almost for one, at least 90%. You know, maybe we could go a little less, 87%, but it's close.
Even the Dirty Magazine.
The Dirty Magazine.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that.
Yeah, the Dirty Magazine, all the dialogue that she said during that with the sticking and all that was from the game. Or when he says, hey, take a nap, I'm not tired. And the next thing she passed out. Ellie did the same thing, from throwing the Dirty Magazine out. Later, dude, same dialogue. A lot of that. It's crazy. I mean, it did the showrunner's job. He's like, you know what? All right, you come in here. We're just gonna do how that play out in that game. Bring the storyboards. Let's do it.
Yeah, I guess the bigger picture point that Adam is making is the deviations are there, but they're not deviating from the overall narrative of what this story is supposed to be. Yeah, we are in Kansas City instead of Pittsburgh. Yeah, there are a couple of things that are different, but
real quick, I just feel like all the deviations that they are making have a purpose. It's not just for the sake of making a change for TV. Mm-hmm. That's why it's like, all right, you introduce a boss. Why? There's got to be a reason for this boss.
They gotta have something.
Because they didn't have to do it. They could have just showed a bunch of hunters that are trying to, rob them and kill and do all this stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, they took over the DZ and now they're just causing havoc and I need to get out of here with my brother. That was the story. Well, now you have a boss and we don't know all the details. Like we said, the brother interrogating or what's going on? Why you killed the doctor for this? We'll see. But there's got to be a reason for it. Just like they made the reason for how the mutated people come out of the ground or how they activate based off of what's through the plant life and stuff. There's a reason for it, and it progresses the story in the way they want to tell it. So it has a purpose. It's not just for the hell of it, and I'm looking forward to the next episode.
Definitely. So, is there anything else that y'all wanted to discuss about this episode before we get ready to wrap things up?
No, I felt like this episode was really good. I don't know what else they could have done to change or make it better. I felt like they did a great job. Like we mentioned, the deviations worked for me. Man, I'm excited for the next episode because the next episode probably includes one of my favorite storylines of the whole show, of the whole video game.
See, I feel cheated. Because we played the game. We know this, and I don't want to know because this seems like such a great show, story to experience the first time. When I remember when I first played it, I could not stop because of the story. It wasn't about the action. I was like, oh, I can't wait to get a new gun. And, there was crafting stations and you see him acting a little bit with the crafting, taking the bag off and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's how he used to do it. But it wasn't about that. It was about progressing the story. Who are we going to come in contact next? What's going to happen next? How are things going to plan out? What new locations? Oh, no, we're in a hotel. Oh, no, we're in a hospital. This is big. It's quiet. It's creepy. We have to look for supplies. It's a lot. It's a lot of that. And I miss that feeling, and some of it pops up, I'm sure, in some parts in the last episode that I didn't really remember, and then I realized, oh wait, it wasn't so much I didn't remember. They moved some parts around, like part 2, I should say, with the hotel happening so early that wasn't there. And I was like, oh, that's right, because that happened later when they did the hotel, and then that's when she goes to help him save Joel's life during that part. But they switched it; they moved it to this area with the car crash and stuff, and then it's fine. But man, I'm sure people that are just watching this that didn't experience the game are having one hell of a time, because it's such a fantastic story. So I'm sure there's some parts that I don't remember that'll come up and it'll pop up as something fresh, and that's what I'm looking forward to, because I don't want to. Yes, I like that it's so close to that people. I always still want to be surprised, like, oh wow, I didn't see that coming, because that's what I remember playing the game, when certain things would happen, certain characters, this and that. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This is beautiful storytelling. What a game! What a game! I know Tony Polanco over from Throwdown. He's not a fan. Yeah, he's not a fan of the IP and all that. And yeah, it's not the second coming of games, but it's one hell of a story. You know, it's definitely pulls you in, and you can see it. Like, man, wait till we get to the astronaut part. Like that astronaut part with the space. Remember the capsule and all that. That's man, that's emotional, and I'm sure we're gonna get that here. I'm sure it's gonna pop up here.
I do agree. It's an emotional. I'm going to take a famous line from Carlos Romero and say, "Hey, no spoilers."
Well, Adam, let's save it. Let's save it for the show.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, yeah, exactly. No spoilers. But I'll just say the only reason why I brought that up, and I forgot, that was one of the things that I forgot about, was until when they were doing the camping, she was looking at the stars, and I'm like, oh yes, I remember that. And she made a reference to the stars. Well, remember, she's never even been in a car. That to her, that was a spaceship. You know, because she had never experienced that. So that's when that flashed back in my head. But man, it's like I remember when I first played and seeing, I was like, what's the point of this? And then, oh wow, this is great. So yeah, people, if you haven't played the game, that's fine. You're in for a treat. That is great. I wish I could just Johnny Mnemonic flush that piece out of my brain, so that way I could re-experience this for the first time and just enjoy it, because I'm looking forward to that. It's great. It's great. It's a great show. I don't know if it's up there with 1923. That's also a great show, but this is good. This is good.
Sounds good.
Well, I agree with Adam. I wish I could erase part of his brain as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So on that note, I think that does conclude our review. Unless it was something else you wanted to mention, Carlos, before we get ready to wrap up.
No. If part of the wrap up is the score,
yes,
then I'll
wait. That's what I was going to get to next.
Yeah. Then I'll wait for that part to give my score. I think I'm ready.
Okay, cool. So yeah, let's give our scores for this episode. I have to go back and check what scores I gave for the other episodes, but I'll go to you first, Carlos, since you're ready.
Yes. This is this is gonna be too predictable, man. I'll give up my previous scores. We don't have to do this, but I'll do it just in case people are curious. I gave episode 1 an 8 out of 10. Thought it was good. I gave episode 2 an 8.25 out of 10. Felt like it improved. It had the test scene was really good. I gave episode 3 an 8.5 out of 10 because I just, the way they did that story with Bill and Frank, it was incredible. This episode, and you know what? The reason why I'm doing this, and I'll admit it, the reason why I'm doing this is because I played the game, so I'm biased. I'm biased as a game, as someone that's played the game and knows this story. But I will admit, last episode on its own is probably a better episode than this one. I wouldn't disagree with everyone that would say, yeah, last episode was by far way better than this one. I wouldn't disagree with you, but for me, I I'll give episode 4 an 8.75 out of 10, which is by far my best rating. Just for the simple fact that I love that they're making Ellie and Joel, like they're expanding on their relationship. We're getting those moments that will culminate into what the narrative of the story of Joel and Ellie is. And I just love the way that they're doing it. I love the fact that they're doing it as close as to the game as possible. They're not really deviating from that. So we're sort of, for those that have played the games, we're along for the ride, and sort of really and Adam mentioned the space stuff. Like we're sort of, for those of us that know the story, we're taking advantage of these moments to appreciate sort of their journey throughout this whole thing, which is they're doing a really good job. So yeah, 8.75 for this episode, which is the highest score that I've given a Last of Us episode. Episode 5, hey, yeah, maybe it'll go up and maybe it'll go down. We'll see.
Sounds good. Yeah, I like that explanation. So how about you, Mr. Adam Vale? What is your score?
This was a building to progression for the characters, for Joel and Ellie, their relationship. Also, just fleshing out the world a little bit better, so that way we understand about there are other factions. They've hinted before. We saw some of the raiders, or that's what they called them before during the last episode. We know they're hunters in this one, or there's resistance fighters. I mean, there's all different names, but they're just bad people out there of all different types, and that's one of the things that the game introduces. It introduced all these different people that were bad for different reasons. They all had their own motives and their own objectives of what they wanted to do, and how they wanted to do that thing, whether rebuild a community or just force people into slave labor, which is something they talked about, I think, in episode 1 or 2, when I think it was Joel that was talking about some of the groups out there, or maybe it was Tess. But yeah, 7.5. That's what I gave this. Because it's just a building. This is just leading up to it. I'm sure the next one is going to have all this flushed out. We're going to see that big brute monster come out. Let's see how they handle that. How when it comes to combat, and are they just going to be running? I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see how they pan out with all of that. So I'm definitely looking forward to the next episode. So this one, 7.5. 7.5. It's still good, though. It's still good. But I'll tell you this much. Now that we keep talking about it in all these episodes, it's like I'm really looking forward to playing this game again when it comes out for PC in a few months, and I'm going to be covering that one. I'm hyped. I am hyped to play it again, the whole thing again, because even though it's not the same, I just miss the world. It's a different feel from watching and then playing, and I just want to jump back in.
Adam.
Yo.
I have the most important question of the night. You're going to play it on PC, but is it going to be on the Steam Deck?
Oh, it's going to be on Steam Deck. I'm taking it on the go. Taking it on the go. That is on the go. That's an immersive experience. Put my headset on, just stare up close with it, holding my hand. Oh man, can't wait. That's one of the beauties of it. And thankfully, Sony has been all aboard when it comes to porting their games over to Steam Deck, and they all have that green checkbox. So God of War, all of them, Uncharted, the Spider-Man, all of them been working on it. So Uncharted, the Last of Us, I'm sure will be no different, and I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, 7.5. What about you, Rich?
Oh yeah, so let me say real quickly, you won't have to wait long, because that's coming to PC next month. I think that's towards the end of the month. So yeah, look forward to seeing how that goes. So my score for this episode, it might be a little controversial. I'm just going to prepare people for it. I'm going to give it. I agree with what you said, Adam. It does feel like it's building to something, and it should be a 2-part episode. So I also will give it around. I will say about an 8. I think last week's episode with Bill and Frank, the main complaint of that episode that people had is that they didn't like that the entire episode focused on Bill and Frank. Although I disagree because I think the story was necessary, but I understand where they're coming from because we didn't get any interactions between Bill and Ellie, and it feels like you only saw Joel and Ellie at the beginning of the episode and towards the tail end of the episode. You did see Joel in the middle of the episode with Tess, but it didn't feel as though it felt like it was really about Bill and Frank. So I understand that complaint, but I still think that episode I think was better than that's still to me the best episode I've seen. Only because of the storytelling and the acting and all the other stuff. But this episode, it does feel like it was building towards something bigger in episode 5. So I would say definitely an 8. But all the episodes I've given so far, they've been in the 8s or a little bit higher. So I don't think
why do you guys hate them?
Oh, say what? No.
Why do you guys hate the show? It's an 8. I mean, you're essentially an 8 is a failing grade. Haven't you guys seen the Metacritic stuff?
My reason is I'm pretty sure at some point there will be an episode that gets a 9 from me.
Yeah,
I don't know about. I'm not sure about a 10. I'm not sure about a 10 yet. It's possible to get a 10, I guess, but
yeah, it's theoretically possible.
There's certain encounters, if done right, and I could definitely see it as a 10 if they can pull it off.
Yeah.
There's a lot of action and craziness that happens and certain things. Yeah.
But one thing I do want to warn people about is that the people who, because there was some backlash for episode 3. I did see an article come out this week that said if people disliked episode 3, around episode 7 or 8, there's going to be some more people complaining because what in that episode they are referring to has to do with
Riley,
a backstory of yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Yes,
because if we played that one, that it's a lot of talking. There's a lot of talking.
Oh, you're talking about the DLC, right?
Yeah, the DLC.
Yes,
that was a lot
that's
of talking.
The one. And that's the one where they're saying there are going to be a lot of people complaining about that one. And I'm not talking about because of the talking, but some of the stuff in that episode. So we'll see what happens. I mean, they loved episode 3, so I don't think they will be too harsh on that other episode, but we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, I can already see those think pieces. They've already been written, man.
Yeah, yes. I mean, that's the time we live in, right? That's how it works.
Yep. Unfortunately, yes. But on that note, that concludes our review discussion for episode 4 of The Last of Us. Do you guys have any shout outs that you would like to give? And I guess I'll go to you first, Adam. Any shout outs you want to give?
Yeah, shout outs to you. Shout outs to all the people that have been switching and following us over here in the new channel, the Koalition Gaming. And of course, checking us out over at the Koalition with all the content reviews. I just put my Dead Space remake review up there. Fantastic game. Don't be scared. They didn't ruin a masterpiece. They just improved on it. It's awesome. Loved it. Shout out to everybody on Throwdown. And that's it, man. Everybody have a good week. Let's look forward to Friday, watching another episode. I think it's great that they're doing this before the Super Bowl. I mean, yeah, move out the way of the big boy. That's it. You want to cut away in the audience because, a large majority of people are just going to focus on the game. Even if they're not into the sport, people love to watch the commercials and stuff. So why even bother? Let's just go a few days early and they're going to get those big numbers, especially on a Friday night. What? Hey, party at my house. Come over. We're going to watch The Last of Us. Get some food. All right. Got the wings. I can see it. Have a discussion afterwards. Get a little crazy. Somebody brings the game over and says, hey, let's play that part. Let's see how accurate it is. Or let's just see the comparisons. I don't know. Have fun with it. Why not?
I agree.
For me, shout out to Rich, the Koalition, everyone that's doing stuff for the Koalition. There's a lot of new stuff that was been percolating on the internets. So it's great to see. Throwdown, of course, like Adam mentioned, go to Throwdown show on YouTube or on Twitter. Gaming podcast we do twice a week. Talk everything gaming. We had a show last night talking about a myriad of stuff. So make sure to check out Throwdown show, and yeah, like Adam mentioned, this Friday night, we'll discuss when we can get the show to you guys, but hopefully, as close enough to when it releases, we'll be able to get this.
Oh, I would think by Saturday or
weekend.
Sunday we could definitely find some little open window on the weekend. That's the
Yeah.
one plus to it. It's like, all right, well, we bang it out on Friday, watch it Saturday, we can do something Sunday.
And then we'll watch a show on Friday too. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, and again, I give a shout out to you both as well. Always enjoy doing these discussions. Shout out to everybody that has been supporting the channel. Stay tuned because there's quite a bit of things that are on the horizon. And on that note, we hope that you all have a great evening. We will talk to you all next time.
Peace.
Later.